What's happening? What's happening? What's happening?
And we're back!
Hey, that's right. Back again. JC's Pop Culture Pod, episode 13, I think now, right? That's episode 13. Got quite a few things to talk about, mainly the main catalyst of when we want to bring back the podcast, which I'm going to try and keep doing, more often. I'm getting there. I think this was less than a month since the last one, so better than we had been prior in the past. But nonetheless, man, some DCU news. DC Studios dropped a ton of news. They dropped an article on Variety, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter. So multiple outlets. We're going to talk about the DC news. Got some news for the Crystal Lake TV show. Bunch of good shit there. And then I'll wrap up, as I usually do, talking about some stuff that I've been watching lately. So appreciate you guys hopping in, tuning in this one. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you're a fan of movies, particularly horror, comedy, superhero. Those are the ones that I talk about the most here. Throw your thoughts in the comments on any of the movie news or anything you got there. Appreciate those interactions. And if you haven't, you can check us out on the audio side, any podcast platform you like. Apple, Google. Well, I guess Google is kind of defunct now. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it. JC's Pop Culture Podcast there. And of course, on YouTube now, JC's Movies, if you want to find us there. But if you're on the audio side, leave us a rating. Appreciate that. No further ado, let's talk about some of this DC news. All right, leading off with this one from Variety. DC Studios update. 2 Batman movies, a possible Teen Titans film, and Penguin Season 2, and why James Gunn posted a photo with Zack Snyder. So this one's coming from Variety. Teen Titans film definitely finally confirmed now. I know we put a video out on the channel way back when it was kind of first announced that it will be Anna Nogueira writing that one as well, who's writing the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow movie. But from Variety here, whoa, deja vu, exclaimed DC Studios co-chief Peter Safran as he stepped inside a modest screening room on Warner Brothers studio lot in Burbank. In January 2023, Safran and his co-chief James Gunn presented the inaugural slate for the newly relaunched DC Universe to a small group of journalists in the same room. Over 2 years later, on February 21st, the duo returned to deliver their first official update about the slate to roughly the same group. James Gunn stated, "It's weird sitting here because it does feel like no time has passed and yet so much has happened. We look so much older," Safran said. "That's the biggest difference." Yeah, Gunn said, "You really do." Nice joke there from James Gunn. But as far as DC, they say a lot has happened with DC in just 2 years. Gunn is deep in post-production on Superman, which we can't wait for July to have that one. And we're going to have a lot of stuff coming to lead up to that. I'm going to try and go through and review most of the Superman movies if I can get to them here. We're going to have to start that up soon to get it done, but that'll be coming on the channel. And then we're going to, of course, have an in-depth review of Superman when it comes out in July, which will be the first DC Studios movie, which he wrote and directed, while simultaneously working on post on season 2 of the Max series Peacemaker. Excited for that. That shit is so funny, man. John Cena, I swear he's tailor-made for that role. Director Craig Gillespie is halfway through production on the summer 2026 film Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow with Millie Alcock, and production has started on the Green Lantern HBO series Lanterns with stars Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre, which is aiming to debut early 2026. More on that momentarily. Along with those updates, over the course of an hour, Gunn and Safran held forth on several topics, including the status of their initial slate of 5 films, which are Batman the Brave and the Bold, and The Authority are included in there anyways, which I think The Authority's kind of put on the back burner. This article's probably going to go on and tell us that. But 5 TV series, including Waller and Booster Gold, as well as confirmation about a handful of other projects, including a film about the Batman villain Clayface. More on that in a bit. That's one I'm excited about now. A prospective live action movie about the Teen Titans, which we talked about briefly. Animated Blue Beetle series, and the future of Sergeant Rock movie now that Daniel Craig has withdrawn from the titular role, which we thought he was going to be in. Seems that's not going to be the case now. Safran noted that DC Studios is ultimately aiming to release 2 live action films and 1 animated film per year, and 2 live action and 2 animated TV series per year. So there's your plan yearly for DC Studios right there. 2 live action films and an animated film, and then 2 live action series and 2 animated series is what you're going to get over the year. And I believe it's a 6-year plan, kind of leading up to like an in-game style event, which my guess personally is that may be like a Kingdom Come type movie or something like that. We'll see if they lead to that or not, but that's kind of the tea leaves I've been reading, unless they've kind of changed that plan since the beginning. But the executives also reiterated reiterated, if I can get that shit out correctly, the overall philosophy guiding their creative choices, namely that no project will get a green light until Gunn and Safran are satisfied with a completed screenplay. So that's one thing that I really thought stood out here, because in the past, that's kind of where DC is, jumped the shark, so to speak, is green lighting these projects. They don't even have a script or anything yet. They're not doing that anymore. They're really focusing on making sure, hey, we got a solid script for this. Okay, now let's green light it. Let's go into pre-production and get ready to roll with this thing. It's hard enough to make a good movie with a good script, Gunn said. It's almost impossible making a movie with a script that you're writing on the run. This is why, for example, they greenlit Clayface on the strength of Mike Flanagan's screenplay, even though, as Gunn said, we had no plans on making a Clayface movie. But hey, Mike Flanagan comes in and throws you a rated R horror style Clayface movie, which, like I said, I'll talk more about that in a minute. And you're going to jump right on board with that because Mike Flanagan, man, he's just been awesome. And if he wants to get involved with DC Studios and bring a horror aspect to it, that's right up my alley, man. So I'm excited about that one too. This approach stands in pointed contrast with DC Studios' obvious counterpart, Marvel Studios, which has quite famously announced many movies and their release dates without anything close to a finished script. But this is an issue that Gunn and Safran first raised in the 2023 presentation, and Gunn has repeated it several times on social media. In general, the overall presentation on Friday, February 21st, while informative and insightful, lacked a sense of immediate urgency, which I'm not mad about that. I don't want them to rush into shit. There weren't any major announcements, even as Gunn and Safran alluded to other unnamed DC projects that they're excited to talk more about in the future. The genial informality of the gathering, however, was another way in which Gunn and Safran are setting DC Studios apart from Marvel, and how just about every other major movie studio manages information about their marquee movie franchises. Gunn and Safran gamely fielded questions about everything from tax credits for production in Cali to the role of superheroes in Trump's America, something other film executives at third level effectively never do on the record like this. If anything, rather than a staged, managed, momentous presentation at San Diego Comic-Con, the event most resembled an old-school executive session during the Television Critics Association press tour. While not quite radical transparency, the update did loosen the rigid structures that have surrounded top-tier franchises for the last 20 years. Here are some of the highlights. Here we go, guys. 2 Batman movies, Clayface, and the Penguin season 2, which no real big surprise there, except maybe the addition of Clayface, because we know Matt Reeves is going to have his Batman universe. We're waiting on the sequel to that. If we ever get it, if they keep delaying it, we might be 20 fucking 40 by the time we get it. But, that's still supposed to be coming. We know the Batman Brave and the Bold is coming, supposed to be directed by Andy Muschietti. And then recently we've got the news of Clayface, and they're going to talk a little bit about Penguin season 2 here, which seems a little bit up in the air. But given that Batman has remained the most consistently successful DC character in film and TV for decades, it perhaps should not be a surprise that Gunn and Safran spent considerable time on updates about DC Studios' expansive intentions for the Caped Crusader. First up, Clayface. Safran confirmed that British director James Watkins, who directed the Speak No Evil remake right there, is in talks to direct what he characterized as a body horror film, which I've heard is also planning to be rated R. And Gunn said they hope this works as a pure horror movie for anybody who doesn't care at all about DC. And that last, little quote there from James Gunn should excite that it's going to work as a pure horror movie, even for people that don't care about DC. So you're hitting all camps there. You're hitting horror fans, you're hitting DC fans. And, both those are up my alley. So hell yeah. They plan to start shooting this summer and have also started the casting process. Gunn has said that actors who voice a role in an animated project will also play them in live action. But while Alan Tudyk has voiced Clayface in 2 DC animated series, as a buffoon in Harley Quinn and as a ruthless assassin in Creature Commandos, Gunn said that he won't play the role in the feature film since that wasn't a primary role for Tudyk, who plays Dr. Phosphorus on Creature Commandos as well, which I guess could mean that if, Dr. Phosphorus pops up, then we could see Alan Tudyk in that role. But it seems like they're going to be going a different way for Clayface. And I saw rumored on social media maybe looking at Daniel Radcliffe, trying to target him for that role, which I think that wouldn't be bad casting there, which I believe it's going to be the Basil Carlo version of Clayface, by the way. Safran offered a brief update of sorts on the Batman Part 2, saying that the writer-director Matt Reeves has yet to turn in a full script, but what we have read so far is incredibly encouraging. Warner Brothers recently pushed the movie from 2026 to 2027, as I talked about earlier. They had even less to say about the possibility of a second season of the spinoff series Penguin with Colin Farrell following the release of Part 2. We don't know, Safran said. There are a lot of moving pieces, probably most important, Colin himself and 800 pounds of makeup, Gunn added, alluding to the extensive prosthetics Farrell must wear for the role. So you can't be mad at Colin Farrell if he don't want to go through that shit again. He's already done it for, the Batman. He's done it for a whole season of the Penguin series, which was absolutely freaking phenomenal. And, Kristen Milioti knocked it out of the park in addition to Colin Farrell. But, he may have to do it for the Batman too. So would he want to do it a fourth time? It's hard to say. But DC Studios also remains in active development on Batman the Brave and the Bold, the film meant to bring the Dark Knight into the main DCU. There, where he'll join, Superman, which we'll see in July, and Supergirl, which we'll see after that. Reeves' Gothamverse exists in its own timeline. So you've got the Matt Reeves Batverse and the DCU remaining separate. I know that there were some rumors that they may try and get Robert Pattinson's Batman into the DCU and make him the DCU's Batman, but they have since confirmed, with this presentation, that is not the case. They're going a different way. They're letting that remain separate. The story is coming together nicely, Safran said, and Gunn added that he has been especially focused on the project, given that everybody knows I love Batman. So if James Gunn's hands-on with it, then I think that's super positive news, because James Gunn, in my opinion, does a great job with pretty much every damn thing he touches. Unfortunately, Gunn said it was very unlikely that the Batman star Robert Pattinson would reprise the role for the Brave and the Bold, as I said there, but did not foreclose the possibility that the DCU version of the character could show up before his titular film, which I think is kind of leaning that way now, that we might get Brave and the Bold before we get the Batman Part 2, which is crazy as hell. Wouldn't expected that, a while back. As Gunn said, he wouldn't rule anything out, could show up in something else, but the actor has not been cast yet. For the Batman animation projects, dynamic duo, Blue Beetle, and 3 new TV series. As first reported in October, DC Studios is in pre-production on the DC animated film Dynamic Duo about the 2 Robins who fought alongside Batman, Dick Grayson and Jason Todd, which that's pretty damn cool. I'm excited about that one. It provides a kind of perfect on-ramp for family audiences into the world of Gotham. The studio is also still in active development on an animated series about Blue Beetle that would continue the events from the 2023 feature film, which is one of the last titles made under the old DC regime. Safran said he expects the executive producers Angel Manuel Soto, who directed the film, and Gareth Donette Alcocer, who wrote the screenplay, to present the project for a possible green light pretty soon. Miguel Puga is directing the series, and Christian Martinez is writing. He also announced that they've greenlit 3 younger skewing animated series, all overseen by executive producer Sam Reederston and produced by Warner Brothers Animation and DC Studios. So I'm guessing that these are the ones I'm about to talk about here, which one of them is My Adventures with Green Lantern, which is going to be set in the same universe as My Adventures with Superman, which I know has gotten rave reviews. Haven't had a chance to check that one out myself. But My Adventures with Green Lantern will follow high school student Jessica Cruz, who has her life upended when, according to official logline, a Green Lantern power ring falls from the sky and chooses Cruz to be its champion. Things get even worse when more debris from the Lanterns' ancient space war arrives, along with their alien foes. Jake Wyatt executive producing and Stephanie Gonzaga co-executive producing. Then you have DC Superpowers, which will take place at the Alliance School for Heroes and focuses on new students Lightning, Flash, Plastic Man, Aquagirl, Green Lantern, and Terra, who level up their powers under the supervision of Principal Martian Manhunter in the hopes of one day graduating and becoming the next generation of Earth's defenders. Matt Beans is executive producing and Michael Chang supervising producing that one. And then lastly, as far as these animated series that are kind of skewed and made for more younger audiences, Starfire serves as the origin story for the fan favorite title character, perhaps best known as a part of the Teen Titans. The show follows her adventures as she uses an ancient spaceship she discovers on her home planet of Tamaron to escape her planet and explore the stars. Along the way, she'll meet space biker Crush, plant-loving Fern, and the magical princess Amethyst of Gem World, and together they will uncover the deepest reaches of the DC universe, save space dolphins, surf Technicolor nebulas, and boldly soar into the unknown. Josie Campbell executive producing and Brian Druhard co-executive producing. And then you get some title cards for the 3 there. If you're watching the video version, you can see me as I scroll past those. And now we'll talk a little bit about Sergeant Rock, Teen Titans, and some rumored projects. Gunn and Safran engaged in some of their most telling exchanges when they were asked about DC projects that had not yet officially announced. Safran, for instance, pointed out that Daniel Craig was never attached to a Sergeant Rock movie, despite previous rumors of that being the case. The actor had only been floated for the role due to his creative relationship with the director, Luca Guadagnino, who directed Craig in 2024's Queer, but he we never met with Daniel, Safran said. He was just an idea. So, the reports were a little bit premature on that one. It sounds like I never really even announced Sergeant Rock Gunn would add later. And then a report asked about the status of a screenplay about the Teen Titans. Of course, we all know the Teen Titans, the group of young superheroes that include Nightwing, Cyborg, Starfire. And it will be written by Anna Noguera, who is writing Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, as I said there. But the script's not ready yet. But they do know that Anna is writing it. It's out there, Gunn said. The implication being they never officially confirmed it until now. It was something that Anna was really impassioned about, and she turned over an amazing script for us. She's fiddling with that now, but it's definitely not a finished script. So the rumors of her writing, true, and that's probably when my video first came out, which I feel like was almost a year ago when they initially announced this Teen Titans with her writing. But it seems like that was more just a rumor, but James Gunn kind of confirming that now, but the script not yet finalized. As he said, they're definitely not a finished script. The reporter then followed up by asking about a prospective Deathstroke/Bane script written by Matthew Orton, who worked on Operation Finale and Moon Knight. You say that like we said there's a Deathstroke/Bane script. Safran replied with a smile. He confirmed that Orton is working on a script for DC Studios, which Gunn said is something kind of like a Deathstroke/Bane story. Interesting. I think that would be really cool if they could get something working with that. But these exchanges made plain one of the challenges of running a superhero studio. Even the possibility of a new movie or TV show featuring one of these characters as a development project that may never come to pass for a host of reasons is enough to unleash a torrent of headlines. Gunn and Safran have clearly decided that it's worth the trouble to maintain an ongoing open dialogue with the media and with fans about what they're doing, but it was also evident that their decision still comes with its share of headaches. After fielding the question about Pattinson playing Batman in The Brave and the Bold, for example, Gunn sighed in exasperation because I'm sure he's tired of hearing this same shit, man, and having to clarify things. I get it. It's frustrating running the studio, especially one that's, kind of trying to rebuild itself after Warner Brothers came in and fiddled with everything and fucked it up, So now you're trying to, rebuild the image and let people have faith in you. And there's all these reports coming out of this false news and all that shit. So I get it. These questions have become headlines because they say, have you ever talked about this? He said, we've talked about literally every permutation on the way to come into this job in terms of how we're going to handle it, what actors we're going to continue over, what we're going to merge. We've talked about everything. Have we ever talked about Grant Gustin? Yeah. Have we ever talked about Robert Pattinson? Yeah. We've talked about all those things, but were they serious conversations? No. So, you don't expect Grant Gustin to be the Flash. Don't expect Robert Pattinson to be the DCU Batman. And then moving on, talking a little bit about Booster Gold, Paradise Lost, Swamp Thing, Waller, and The Authority. Gunn and Safran also briefed reporters about the status of some other projects they first announced back in 2023. They remain in development on the Wonder Woman prequel series, Paradise Lost, and they're also moving forward on developing the superhero comedy series, Booster Gold, after waiting on a particular showrunner/creator who had expressed interest in the show, but ultimately moved on. But I like that Booster Gold's going to be, a superhero comedy, and you have some of those, and then you have, some on the horror end, then you have some more action-oriented stuff. So even within the DCU projects, you're almost touching different genres, which is really cool. 3 other titles that don't quite have as much wind in their sails. The horror film Swamp Thing has been stuck in limbo while director James Mangold focused on his Oscar-nominated Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown. And then the Peacemaker spinoff series Waller with Viola Davis has had what Gunn called a bumpy road, struggling to find the right script. The show, which was meant to precede season 2 of Peacemaker, also had to be reconceived after Peacemaker wound up going into production first, which Peacemaker season 2, I think, was going on simultaneously while Superman was filming. I think he was kind of working on both those projects. The project that suffered the most, it seems, is The Authority, which kind of teased out a little bit earlier. Sounds like that may not actually come to fruition. In the 2023 presentation, Gunn spoke at length about the movie, which he said would follow the events of Superman, as it tracked a team of superheroes who adopt a more unsparing, ends justify the means philosophy than the Man of Steel. In the intervening 2 years, however, The Authority has moved to the back burner. It's a very, very big movie if you're going to do The Authority properly, Safran said. And some story elements, perhaps, that are in Superman and some of the other films that we fast-tracked step a little bit on The Authority. Gunn added that the script also had a hard time coming along, so the film hasn't been much of a priority because it's been subsumed by everything from Brave and the Bold to Paradise Lost. So really, it's just down the pecking order right now. Who knows if it'll ever be one that they get around to, but they're kind of moving other things up ahead of it, like Batman, like Wonder Woman, which honestly, I think is probably a good idea. I know we're going to be introduced to a lot of these characters in that, authority team in Superman, but as far as, general audience, what they would go to, they're gonna go see Batman way before they go see a movie about the Authority, or they're gonna see Wonder Woman way before they check out a movie about the Authority. So don't think that's bad news necessarily either. Although I was looking forward to the Authority. And then the Zack Snyder photo, which sent shockwaves across social media and share, right? Just because, oh my God, James Gunn took a photo with Zack Snyder. Is he going to be involved in the DCU? But Gunn still does occasionally post to his Blue Sky Instagram and Twitter/X accounts, most recently a photo of him with Zack Snyder, the filmmaker whose past tenure at the helm of DC's live action generated a fiercely passionate online fan base, and of course that photo went instantly viral. Asked if the photo meant that they've discussed a possible collaborative creation, Gunn said that he and Snyder, who have known each other since Snyder directed Gunn's script for 2004's Dawn of the Dead, which that's funny because I never realized that James Gunn wrote that movie. I love that Dawn of the Dead remake by Zack Snyder, but never even put two and two together that James Gunn wrote that. Sometimes talks about different things, but they knew the pictures. They took the picture specifically because they knew it would melt the internet. So they did it, on purpose just to go viral. But who knows what will happen in the future? But James Gunn says, we knew that people have this view that somehow we've been pitted against each other. It's odd to have someone who you're friendly with in real life be the guy that is positioned as your Lex Luthor, or maybe I'm his Lex Luthor. It's just such a weird dynamic that's been created between two factions online. So maybe that's kind of trying to bridge the gap a little bit and letting, the Snyder apologists be like, hey, Zach's supporting what we're doing here, so you guys can come on board as well. But the wider DCU story here, this is a nice article here by Variety. I thought I'd have to go to the Variety article, the Deadline article, and the Hollywood Reporter article, but I think Variety has about all of it here within it, so we'll probably just stick with this one. But there were times when it sounded like the creative mandates Gunn and Safran had set for the larger DC universe were somewhat at a crossroads. On the other hand, Gunn said that they remain steadfast in making sure that each of these projects works as a standalone project, so that you can go see Superman and you can watch Lanterns without having to see both of them. I like that. I like that a lot, because I think sometimes that's the issue. It's like, what do you mean I can't go watch this movie if I haven't seen 18, Disney Plus series, if we're talking MCU? And so I think that they're trying to avoid those pitfalls here with the new DC studios, with the DCU. On the other hand, Safran said that the entire reason they're relaunching DC Studios as an endeavor unifying all DC projects across film, TV, animation, and video games is that people want to see these iconic characters interacting, and they're going to give us that down the line. I know we'll see some of them interacting in Superman, but before we have a large team up, a Justice League-esque, if you will, it'll probably be a little bit. As here it is. To that end, Gunn said that he mapped out a rough 6-year plan to tell a wider story that would result in a culminating project akin to Marvel's, Avengers Endgame style movies, though he insists that each individual project will work as its own thing. It isn't like they're chapters of an overall story, he continued. They're characters that are part of an overall story, which I think that may actually work better. Instead of having, piecemeal, here's this part of the story, which is going to lead into this movie, which is part of the story, which is going to lead into this movie, and we're all building up to this. They're taking a different approach where you're introduced to these characters in this movie, this standalone film. You're introduced to these characters in this standalone film. And then eventually all these characters you've been introduced to will come together for one story versus those stories culminating into one bigger team up. I kind of like that approach because it's more accessible, even if you miss one of the films, that may seem like a distinction without a difference, but Gunn is clear that he knows where the overall story is heading. I'm intimately involved in all of that, he says. And then a little bit here, tying it into, I guess, today, superheroes in Trump's America. With Gunn's Superman film due to open in July, 6 months into the second Trump administration, the director was asked about his version of Superman, if it's right for the current cultural moment. In some ways, I would say it's the right Superman because I don't think he's a part of the cultural moment, Gunn replied. He's a character that stands for something that is solid, for basic human morals, basic human integrity, the basic belief in protecting others, the weak, and being good to people and being honest. He stands for what I think of as the rules that don't change, which sounds good to me. Sounds like Superman to me. Another reporter then brought up how skittish studios have been, or her studios have become, around questions of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the wake of President Trump's relentless campaign to rid not just the federal government, but much of American public life of DEI initiatives, specifically, and women and people of color in positions of power generally. It was a natural question to ask, but a precarious one, given how any public comments defending diversity could be commandeered by Trump supporters to derail the Superman marketing campaign before it's even started. That's all you need is the get a negative mark on the Superman movie in the lead up just a couple of months, 2 or 3 months out from its release, to when you get people, certain groups of people boycotting it and stuff, whether it be on either side of the political spectrum. You don't want that. You want everyone to come see the movie, right? um, but Gunn's response proposed a different strategy: plead ignorance. I know what you're saying, he said to the reporter. I understand your words, but I've been off working on stories for 3 years, and I just try to tell the best stories I possibly can, and that's all I care about. He added that he doesn't read the news anymore or spend nearly as much time on social media as he used to, in part for his own mental health, but mostly because running a studio while also working directly on Superman and Peacemaker means he doesn't have the time. We're just off trying to make the best movies we can in the best way we can. No matter who is telling me or who I'm supposed to put in my movie for whatever reason, I don't give a shit. I was always about creating the best story possible with the best characters possible. It was that way, 5 years ago, and it's that way today. So there it is. A lot to chew on there, but a huge update for the DCU, for DC Studios, and for the projects in the future, which we're really excited about. A lot of those, as I kind of touched on there. But let's pull up a little bit here about Lanterns, what you guys in the video version will get a little bit more out of this, because it's more of a first look of the images. As we know, we have Aaron Pierre and we have Kyle Chandler as John Stewart and Hal Jordan, respectively. And we got a first look picture here. There's the image for you guys watching on the video version. If you listen on the audio side, what we got here is two of them walking down, a 2-lane road, looks like, a highway type deal. I believe that this was in Texas, somewhere like that. It's what it looks like according to the background. You got John Stewart on the left, a little blue coat, gray shirt, some brown pants. You get Kyle Chandler as Hal Jordan in jeans, black t-shirt, and brown coat. But the most standout thing from the image is you can see the ring there, the power ring, the Green Lantern ring there on Hal Jordan's hand. It doesn't appear to be present on John Stewart's hand, which is interesting there as well. Could this be a passing of the torch? We know Kyle Chandler is a little bit older than Aaron Pierre. That's his name, right? Yeah, Aaron Pierre. And of course, they've, I think, aged him up a little bit. Looks like they've added some gray to his hair there in this image as well. But our first look there, and a little bit of info. Lanterns, the upcoming Green Lantern TV show from DC Studios and HBO, dropped a first look at Aaron Pierre and Kyle Chandler as the main heroes, John Stewart and Hal Jordan. They may not be dressed up in their green uniforms, but if you look closely, you can see the green ring on Chandler's finger. Otherwise, the two leads are in their civilian clothes and walking down a deserted highway. I should have just read the article. They kind of painted it better than I did there, but the official log line here: the series follows new recruit John Stewart and Lantern legend Hal Jordan, two intergalactic cops drawn into a dark Earth-based mystery as they investigate a murder in the American heartland. Brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Sorry, I had to throw it in there, but definitely, I think the picture, kind of without even reading that log line, I picked up on the fact that Hal Jordan's been doing this a while, and John Stewart's new to this, as it says, new recruit John Stewart, hence him not having the ring yet. The cast will also include Kelly McDonald, Garrett Dillahunt, Porna Jagannathan, and Ulrich Thompson as Green Lantern villain Sinestro, which is cool. Sinestro in there as well. Lanterns co-written by Chris Mundy, Damon Lindelof, and Tom King. All three executive producers, along with James Hall, with Hall's directing the first 2 episodes. No release date announced yet, but hopefully that'll be coming soon, since we know they're going through principal photography right now and sharing some images. So we'll see what happens with that. But I think that's pretty much all I had there on DC. Checking and making sure, scanning, no whammies, no whammies. Doesn't look like that's pretty much all I got on the DC side of things there. So now I've got some horror stuff to talk about, and then we'll wrap up talking about some stuff that I've been watching lately. But stuff going on in the horror genre. which of course always is big for me as well, to go along with being a huge DC fan, as you guys know. One of those being the Crystal Lake TV series. Been waiting some updates on that one, and we finally got one recently in involved casting, which kind of tells us maybe the way that they're kind of leaning towards this. We know it's kind of a prequel series, at least that's what they've been described as. But the fact that Linda Cardellini is in talks to star in the Crystal Lake series from A24 shows that they're probably giving us a bit younger Pam Voorhees to go along with that, because we're expecting she's going to play Pamela Voorhees here. A24 and Peacock headed to Crystal Lake, and this is from Bloody Disgusting, I should add, for a small screen expansion of the Friday the 13th franchise, and the team may have found their Miss Voorhees for the prequel series. According to a report from Jeff Schneider over the In Snyder tonight, so take it for a grain of salt, but Bloody Disgusting sharing it, then they probably feel pretty confident about it, and I've seen it from a lot of sources. Linda Cardellini is in talks to play Jason's mother in the upcoming Crystal Lake series. Brad Caleb Kane, who is also doing the Welcome to Derry show, which will be on Max, I think that's later this year, right, is the showrunner for Crystal Lake. Peacock had given the project a straight-to-series order in 2022. Damn, 3 years we've been waiting on this shit. That's so crazy. I didn't realize that it was that long ago this was first announced. I knew it had been a while, but not that long. And it seems like all these, horror shows that we're waiting on, like Crystal Lake, we've been waiting 3 years. Halloween series, that series they're supposed to be making was announced, a year or two ago, and we've had pretty much no news on that either. So I don't know if people are just dragging their feet or if they're having struggles getting, everything together for it. But, damn, since 2022 is crazy. But it has been described as an expanded prequel to the original Friday the 13th franchise, featuring both Jason Voorhees and his mother, Pamela Voorhees. The original showrunner, Brian Fuller, with Fuller's departure leading to a retooling of the series. And of course, that was kind of the big thing that set this back initially, which seems like maybe they're finally moving forward again from that. Let's see here. From the moment I watched Jason Voorhees squeeze the guy's eyeball out of its socket at the tender age of 8 years old, I knew my creative path was someday destined to converge with the man behind the mask, said Caleb Kane, the new showrunner there, in a recent statement. The statement from last year continued, nothing defined my childhood more than growing up in the golden age of the slasher flick, and nothing defined the genre more than Friday the 13th. I couldn't be excited for the opportunity to contribute as a chapter to this iconic franchise, particularly with such fearless partners as Peacock and A24. Crystal Lake will be the Friday the 13th franchise back to life after 16 years, at least. I mean, it might be damn 20 by the time we get it. But Jason Voorhees been lying dormant for at least 16 years due to the legal issues that we know of course. And then we get a picture of Betsy Palmer, who played Miss Voorhees originally there. John Squires writing this for Bloody Disgusting. So we got Linda Cardellini, who is easy on the eyes for one, but I think that would be cool to see her as Miss Voorhees as well. Freaks and Geeks, one of the most underrated TV shows as well ever, was probably the first thing I saw her in. But nonetheless, let's move on, talk a little bit more about some other horror projects. So let's go to a couple here that are on well, before we get to the big screen, I guess we should talk one more about another TV series here, because it is one that I watched recently and was a huge fan of, and that, of course, is the Creep Tapes. If you guys didn't see season 1 of the Creep Tapes, definitely check it out. Both the Creep movies are phenomenal, and the Creep Tape show may have even, surpassed the movies. I think it really fits well in the show format that they were using it for, because you had a different, character for Mark Duplass's, serial killer character to terrorize each episode. But after the release of 6 brand new tapes last year, the found footage Creep franchise headed back to the small screen with the Creep Tape season 2. AMC Shudder has ordered 6 brand new episodes for season 2, of course, created by Patrick Bryce and Mark Duplass, who did the movies as well. Deadline details set to premiere on Shudder and AMC later this year. So they're coming out with this one quick. Season 2 will continue to unravel the mind of the franchise's secluded serial killer, played by Mark Duplass, who lures videographers into his world with the promise of a paid job documenting his life. Unfortunately, as the tape rolls, the killer's questionable intentions surface, with his increasingly odd behavior, and the victims will learn they may have made a deadly mistake. And of course, Peach Fuzz pops up, Tubby Time, all that crazy shit, if you know the Creep franchise. But Deadline's report also notes that the first season of the show was a hit for both AMC Plus and Shudder, debuting as the most watched Shudder show of all time on AMC Plus. Wow. And the strongest November release in Shudder history. That's awesome. I loved the Creep Tape, so I'm not surprised. The report adds that the Creep Tape season 1 drove record subscriber growth and social media engagement. Mark Duplass says in a statement, "We made the first season of the Creep Tapes completely independently, so we were able to truly and unabashedly get our freak on. The fact that so many of you watched it on Shudder not only asked us for more, but asked us to go even further this time around. That's just really, really unsettling and terrifically, terrifically, I don't know how to. I've never seen that word. Terrifically exciting, terrifically, yeah, terrifically. That's it's just weird to see it in writing and try and read it. But yeah, terrifically. I don't think I've ever seen that word spelled out. It's fucking weird. But Patrick Bryce, the other creator, says we're beyond delighted at the opportunity to bring audiences fresh kills from the closet in a second season of the Creep Tapes. For the series to have found such a rabid audience at Shudder is an absolute dream. It seems ridiculous to apply the term "in labor of love" to such an insane franchise, but it's the truth, and we can't wait to dive back in. So excited about that. Peach Fuzz will return here, as stated there, in Bloody Disgusting. So we're getting the Creep Tape Season 2, sounds like later this year, which is pretty sweet. Which now we can go to the big screen, which I tried to say earlier and jump the gun, jump the shark, maybe, if you will. But speaking of something that we talked about earlier, and that's the Clayface movie. And this also from Bloody Disgusting. Eden Lake filmmaker directing Clayface movie written by Mike Flanagan. So Mike Flanagan is writing the Clayface movie. The Hollywood Reporter confirmed that. A director had also been found. Flanagan's not directing, he is writing, but James Watkins will be directing, which I think we touched on a little bit earlier. Eden Lake, The Woman in Black and Speak No Evil. Warner Brothers will release DC's live action Clayface. The target release date is September 11th of next year. So it seems like this one will be coming at us soon. And according to Hollywood Reporter, sources say the film's budget will be $40 million and is a Hollywood horror tale centering on B-movie actor who injects himself with a substance to keep himself relevant, only to find out that he can reshape his face and form, becoming a walking piece of clay. The movie is due to shoot later this year. And it's funny because Flanagan tweeted back in 2021, his dream Clayface movie was a horror thriller / tragedy. And it sounds like he went ahead and penned that script and now is getting to write that movie for DC. So really excited about this one. Can't wait to see the casting news. I kind of hope those Daniel Radcliffe rumors are true, but I'll continue to report it on future episodes here on the podcast or on videos there on the channel on JC's Movies here. Either way, as this Clayface news comes out, we'll talk about it because I'm excited about it. DC horror movie with Mike Flanagan writing. All over that shit. Can't wait for it. And then lastly, the return of some classic slasher franchises. Well, one is already returned. It's just kind of going into a different permutation. But before we talk about that one, let's talk about one that is returning. And these are also from Bloody Disgusting. But that's I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I think we talked a little bit about on the last podcast episode that we dropped there. But here on episode 13, we do get some photos here, some behind-the-scenes photos that tease the return of Julie James, which, of course, played by Jennifer Love Hewitt in the original one there. Jennifer Love Hewitt will return as 90s slasher heroine Julie James in this year's I Know What You Did Last Summer legacy sequel from Sony, directed by Jennifer Caton Robinson, who took to Instagram to tease the comeback. Let's see if we can find the pictures here, which it's slated to release July 18th, actually. So it's releasing, I think that's a week after Superman, right? So it'd be a fun summer of movies. But here is the picture that she shared on social media there. She even tagged Jennifer Love Hewitt in it. But you see a piece of mail being sent to Julie James, no return address there, and pretty blank envelope. So I'm guessing that there may be a message in there that says, "I know what you did last summer." Hey, call me crazy. But that's what I'm thinking. But that's good that we're getting teased up on that. And I Know What You Did Last Summer coming out, before we know it. We'll probably be getting a trailer very soon. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we got to talk about Scream 7, guys, because since the last time I dropped an episode, it finally happened. Something that I know myself, probably a lot of you have been clamoring for a long time. I've talked about it on here in the past. We wanted Stu back, guys. We wanted Stu back. As I get a freaking error message there, but let me go back to the article here. Scream 7 hits theaters 1 year from today. If you guys didn't know, Matthew Lillard put out a huge statement, pretty much confirming his return, writing out, "My mom and dad are going to be so mad at me," one of the classic quotes from the original Scream. And Matthew Lillard is the reason why I think that's still the best Scream movie, because his performance was so phenomenal in that movie. But he's coming back. And Scream 7 hits theaters 1 year from today, the day that I'm recording this episode on February 27th. It's supposed to come out February 27th of next year. So we've got everything we know so far here. Alex DiVincenzo putting this together over on Bloody Disgusting. So let's talk a little bit about everything we know so far about Scream 7. Neve Campbell set to reprise her role as Sidney Prescott after sitting out Scream 6. Courtney Cox, Mason Gooding, and Jasmine Savoy Brown are returning, along with former Ghostfaces Matthew Lillard and Scott Foley. It's unclear how the dispatch killers will be used. Could it be flashback? Maybe, but could they be coming back in real time? Also possible. I don't know how that's going to happen for Scott Foley's character, because you guys know Scott Foley was, revealed to be the killer in Scream 3, revealed to be Sidney Prescott's brother, and literally gets shot directly in between the eyes. So more intrigued to see how that one comes back. I think there's a better chance of Stu being able to survive. Yeah, he got a TV dropped on his head, but that's, to me, seems more survivable than getting actually shot in between your eyes. So, but it's interesting that they're both coming back. Isabel May from 1883 joins the franchise as Sidney's daughter, with Joel McHale playing Sidney's husband, Mark Evans, which they hit us with a little bit of a okey doke on that one, because when we heard him say Mark was Sidney's husband, we thought they were talking about, Mark Kincaid, also from Scream 3, played by, what's his face? McDreamy or whatever from the damn Grey's Anatomy show. What's that damn actor's name, man? I can't think of his name right now. Why am I blanking on his name right now? Shit. Now I've got to look it up because it's going to bug the hell out of me. Patrick Dempsey. I was going to bug the hell out of me, guys. But instead of Patrick Dempsey, it's Joel McHale, and he's playing a character named Mark Evans, who is Sidney's husband in this movie. We also have McKenna Grace, Celeste O'Connor, Sam Reckner, Asa German, Anna Camp, Ethan Embry, which is a good add to the cast, and Mark Consuelos, who you'll know if you watched Riverdale, as morning show host Robbie Rivers to round out the cast. Roger L. Jackson expected to provide the voice of Ghostface, as he's done for all the movies. Kevin Williamson, who wrote the original Scream, Scream 2 and Scream 4, is directing Scream movie for the first time, with Guy Busick returning to write, who wrote Scream 5 and Scream 6. Plot details being kept under the wraps, but the latest installment of the slasher saga is expected to focus on Sidney and her family in the fictitious town of Pine Grove, Indiana. So leaving Woodsboro yet again. So, not the first time we've done that. We've done that, a couple times now. But, going to a different town will be interesting. Gooding teased that the film has the most brutal ghost face ever, but didn't they say that about 6 as well? I don't know. Scream 7 started production in Atlanta on January 7th and expected to wrap in mid-March. And that's what we know thus far about Scream 7, and that's all I got news-wise. Other than that, just talk about some stuff that I've been watching lately, which for me, the main couple things, I guess, besides the movies, which I've been reviewing on the channel on JC's Movies. If you guys listen on the audio side, be sure to hop over to the YouTube channel and check out the 2025 movie reviews. We've got Wolfman, Companion, Hard Eyes, and then most recently just did a review for The Monkey. So that's kind of what we've been going with so far in 2025, and we'll keep those coming moving forward. But other than that, stuff I've been watching that, I haven't reviewed on the channel, that I just stuff that I talked about on the podcast, kind of mainly Paradise, which is on Hulu, which you also watch it on Disney Plus. Awesome ass show. The most recent episode was episode 7, and Sterling K. Brown absolutely knocks it out of the park. He's doing a phenomenal performance in the show in general, but man, episode 7 had me crying like a baby. It was sad. It was heart-wrenching. It was scary. It was, everything that you wanted it to be. And Sterling K. Brown delivered an incredible performance. If you aren't watching Paradise, check it out, because it's just really an interesting concept of like what would happen if a cataclysmic, nuclear event, that could end Earth, so to speak, and what would happen if we built an underground city for select people to go to in that event. And that's what kind of Paradise is. I don't want to give too much away for you because there's so many twists and turns. I want you to check it out for yourself, but that's a phenomenal show. And then, damn, was I late to the party on this one, but just as good, if not better. I think one of the best shows I've watched in a while, Severance on Apple, guys. If you haven't seen Severance, check it out. Awesome cast: Adam Scott, Christopher Walken, Zach Cherry, John Turturro, Patricia Arquette. You go on down the line. A lot of good people popping up in the show, but created by Ben Stiller. And, when you hear Ben Stiller, you think comedy, and it does deliver some laughs. Actually, I laugh a good bit throughout the show, but it's not necessarily joke related as much as it's kind of situational related, almost sometimes like a nervous laughter. But really, it's just so damn trippy. And I had no idea what the show was about before I started it, but just in case you don't and you would like to dive in, Severance is literally a process that people go through in the show, especially people that work at the company that the show is based in, Lumen, where they have this basically this chip inserted into their minds that severs their home life and their work life. And they call it the innie and the outie. You go to work, you don't remember anything when you leave. When you're at home, you don't remember anything from work. It's almost like two separate people, and you would not believe the twists and turns that it takes, the kind of sinister aspects of it that'll have you on the edge of your seat. It's very much a thriller type show with some good comedy thrown in as well and some good drama. It will have you laugh, it will have you maybe cry, it will definitely have you shook at times, and it will definitely have you saying, "What the fuck is going on?" Because I'm all the way, caught up. I think episode 7 of season 2 drops today or tomorrow. And, I caught up with, I hadn't watched it, and I watched literally the whole first season and caught up in the second season in like 2.5 days. That's how addicting this show is and how good it is. So I can't recommend Severance enough. Go watch it. I'm not giving away any spoilers for Severance because you deserve to take that roller coaster ride throughout that show. And the same goes for From, which is, a horror TV show that I think it's what MGM Plus, but it just wrapped up season 3 a while back actually, but I just now finally got around to watching season 3. Watched all of season 3 in a couple of days because it's another show that you can just sit there and binge watch. If you're a fan of horror, watch From. You will absolutely love it. I think it's the best, horror TV show, horror series in quite some time. I don't know if we're supposed to call them TV shows now that it's all fucking streaming or what, but I still call them TV shows or TV series here. But that's mainly what I've been watching, guys, other than the movies I've been reviewing, and have more movies to review, coming up in the near future. I want to watch The Gorge and hopefully maybe get a review for it up. We'll see what happens. But there are some good releases coming out in March. And then, of course, once we get into the summer, we got Fantastic Four, we got Superman, the most anticipated movie of the year for me, that you guys know I've been following since way back in the early stages of the casting process of providing updates on the JC's Movie channel here on YouTube. So that's one we're looking forward to. We just talked about Know What You Did Last Summer. So a lot of good releases this year. Be sure, if you're only listening on the audio side, to hop over to the JC's Movies YouTube channel. Subscribe here, where you can talk movies, TV series like we have here on the podcast. I'll review a lot of horror movies, superhero and comedy. So if those are up your alley, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you are watching this on the video version, before you head out, just take a second, hit that like button. It helps a shit ton with the YouTube algorithm. If you're on the audio side, find on any podcast platform you like, leave us a rating. That helps as well. Trying to get this pushed out and grow the channel, grow the platforms here to, more movie fans, more TV show fans like yourself if you're listening to this. But can't thank you enough for doing just that. Really appreciate you. And I will catch you on the next episode, guys.